It's that jumpin', yeah. This that jumpin', start like 23. Just that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. Just that jumpin', shoot my shot, then beat. This that jumpin', right around smoking my trees. This that jumpin', start like 23. This that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. Just that jumpin', shoot my shot, then beat. Just that jumpin', right around smoking my trees. I be ballin' the music like Kobe. I'm the greatest to ever do it, they don't know it.
All right. Back like we never left, right? Last night we did a pretty fun wrestling show to get set for the Elimination Chamber, and we told everybody the Turtles Take was going to be on tonight. Little late, had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're on 15 minutes a little bit later tonight. But we're here. We're going to kill it. Turtle, how you doing tonight, man?
You know, I'm really good. Oh, sorry, I was just tagging Turtles Take. You know, I'm good, man. It's been a while since we were able to get on here, and anytime we can do Turtles Take is always a good night for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of cool stuff going on with Chicago sports.
There is a lot. You know, I know that some negative news came out just recently about Mongo, so, you know, our thoughts are with him right now. Hopefully he's able to pull through. It'd be a shame to see him get the nod to the Hall of Fame and not be able to make it to that. But, you know, we want to keep it a little more lighthearted tonight. So we're going to talk some sports. Obviously, the Bears have a lot going on right now with the first pick and the 9th pick. Somebody's making his triumphant return to the ice tonight, and pitchers and catchers reported. So
always a good day when that happens.
I'll let you choose where we start, man. It's your show. You want to do pitchers and catchers, little hockey, little Bears?
I mean, well, we got two choices. We either start with the Bears or we end with the Bears.
I mean, ending with the Bears is always fun because then when I get
let's
pissed off.
Let's take care of the other business, and then we'll really sink our teeth into the Bears then.
All right. So let's start with pitchers and catchers because I am a huge fan of baseball. And unfortunately, both sides of the city of Chicago, their baseball teams really haven't done much in terms of big splashes this offseason. And
they've barely even done little splashes.
Can we even call it the offseason anymore? Because pitchers and catchers reported, so the offseason's over. Now we're sitting in a situation where the Cubs signed a pitcher. Yeah, you know, you hear good things, but Cody Bellinger was kind of the thing that was going to, you know, move the needle for this team forward. He did so well last year, and now, you know, him. But there's a lot of other guys that are out there too, but he was the main guy that the Cubs are going after. So, you know, what do you think the reason is behind why, you know, guys like Bellinger and these other guys haven't signed yet?
You know, it was one of those things that everybody you talk to and everybody that you heard, you know, the people that are really dialed in baseball, they told you, well, it's all this stuff with Ohtani and I forget his name, but the Japanese pitcher that also went to the Dodgers. Everything's going to start after they land. Well, it took a long time, but Ohtani went to the Dodgers, and was it Yamamoto or whatever his name is?
Yep.
He went there as well, and those pieces fell. And then you still saw a very slow, or in the Cubs' case, non-existent.
Non-existent. That's a good way to put that.
I thought Corey Bellinger made a lot of sense. I thought it was an easy deal, like, because he was already there. He said he loved Chicago. They said they loved having him. He had a great year. But yet here he remains unsigned. But then you look around, like Blake Snell, also not signed. Like all these guys that everyone was like, oh, well, these are the pieces that are going to fall next. That's going to happen quick. Clearly not.
Right.
You know, I mean, so I think part of it is some of these guys, they don't want to go through the spring training and all that. But I mean, we're getting down to it now. Like they're reporting, and I don't know. I mean, I just, you know, every year you hear guys want more and more money and teams don't want to spend the money and blah, blah, blah. You know, for as far as we're concerned, though, as Cub fans, all we heard was, oh, Jed's got all the money he needs.
Yep.
And he needs it. But that's what we heard before too, right? It was like, well, Theo has all the money he needs when he needs it. So either the Cubs front office, Theo and now Jed, either they just don't think they need money or that's just not the case. Mr. Ricketts seems to maybe have that little tight, secure grip on the wallet there and not willing to let them spend.
Turtle, is my camera frozen?
Yes, it is. I wasn't sure if it was you or me.
No, that's all right. I'm just gonna go to this till I can figure out why it's frozen. This is better anyways, this picture. But no, like I fully agree with you. There was talks all off season about how the Cubs are going to be players. You bring in Craig Counsell, a guy who many believe is top 3 managers in MLB right now. You bring him in and okay, cool. The floodgates are maybe not the floodgates, but the spending is going to pick up because you want to put pieces on this team so that you can give him the best opportunity to win a World Series. And now all of a sudden, Cody Bellinger, who had a resurgence in his career last year playing for this Cubs team in Wrigley, now you're sitting in a situation where he's still out there and nobody's really looking at these guys right now.
Well, and Matt Chapman too, like some of the guys that were rumored at the beginning was like, oh, in a perfect scenario, maybe we get Bellinger and Chapman.
Right.
Okay, they're both still there. Like, go get them.
Yep.
We heard about, Morel could be moved in a major trade. Okay, that never happened either. Like, it felt like a lot of smoke and mirrors. And then, like, we got down to it and there's no substance behind it. Like, a lot of smoke, but no fire.
Right.
We heard the smoke of Bellinger, Chapman, the closer from Miami, a lot of different guys, Cleveland, a lot of guys that we heard, okay, these are the guys they're going to target. And then when the smoke cleared, there turned out to be no fire. It just was smoke. There really was nothing. So I don't really understand. I'm glad you brought up Craig Counsell because I almost forgot about him. It's been so uneventful since then.
Yep.
But when they signed him, that was the big thing, was like, okay, well, he could have got $8 million from anybody. It didn't have to be the Cubs. So what did the Cubs say to convince him to come to the Cubs? It had to be, okay, well, we're going to spend and we're going to get this guy and we're going to get that guy. What happened to Pete Alonso? We heard, they're going to be in on Pete Alonso. They're going to trade Morel for Pete Alonso. Even if the big moves didn't happen, we're not even seeing little moves. Like, this team doesn't look that much different than it did last year, and you weren't a team that was going to compete for a championship last year. So now as this continues, like, where is the – I would just, we always like to say, if so-and-so was given truth serum.
Right.
If Jed Hoyer was given truth serum, like, you can't think this team is going to compete. This can't be the team that you envisioned when you went out and spent all that money on Craig Counsell and fired David Ross, who was a fan favorite, Mr. Cub. You fired him.
Yep.
But everybody understood, right? Like, everybody was like, look, I like Rossi. I'd love to party with Rossi, but I want Craig Counsell managing this team, not David Ross.
Right.
Now, and what are you going to get? 5 more wins out of the same team with Counsell than you wouldn't with Ross? Like, there had to be other moves that were intended.
Exactly. And now you're losing. If you don't get Bellinger back, you lose a pretty significant piece of your lineup.
Yeah.
That was productive last season. I mean, you got guys like Seiya and Dansby Swanson, Christopher Morel is still on the team, Ian Happ, Nico Horner. Like, they're still guys, but Bellinger gave you this. I mean,
he was the power. He was the guy that, he went through them stretches where he was the hottest bat in baseball, like, not just on your team, but in baseball. And, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, now he's not here. And it's not because he went somewhere else. Like, you just didn't pay him. So, like, at that point, just go pay him. Like, I'm tired of, like, you're the Chicago Cubs, right? Like, you're not the Pittsburgh Pirates. You're not the Nationals. You're not any of these small market teams.
Right.
Like, you are the Chicago mother effing Cubs. Like, go be the Cubs and go spend money like you're in a big market.
3rd biggest market. And they spend, like, especially recently, like, they spend so frivolously. It's kind of embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
you see teams like the Dodgers.
All that market around, sorry not to cut you off, but they built all that around Wrigley. the hotel and the parking garage and all that stuff because it was going to be the mecca of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put a really crappy team on the field.
Yeah, because like obviously you have guys in the minors, right, that are still going to be coming up.
Yeah.
And a lot of hope for those guys coming up. But also none of those guys are going to give you the productivity that Cody Bellinger gave you last season. I mean, there's hope maybe.
And even if they are, it won't be right now. Like baseball, baseball's the hardest thing to get right because, I mean, let's be honest, that's why they won the World Series. They got lucky. Like you could call it skill, you could call it whatnot. They got lucky. Like all those pieces turned out.
Yep.
Like they didn't turn out long term, but they turned out for that year. They turned out for when they needed them to turn out. Like they were supposed to be good. Like you remember back, they were supposed to be good the next year. But they were so good, Chris Bryant and all those guys, Rizzo, everybody was so good that they were like, hey, we're here a year early.
Right.
And then as baseball turns out to do, it just was one of those magical seasons that everything went right.
Right.
And
they were the top team all season.
Right.
You know, they were the guys that everybody was chasing. The target was on their back. Joe Madden embraced that, and everything did just kind of fall into place. You had Jake Arrieta pitching some magical stuff, and Kyle Hendricks was coming into his own. John Lester, like that team was.
Chapman was throwing till his arm fell off. Like,
right. You know, you had Javi who was doing Javi things back then. Chris Bryant. It's kind of wild. Like, I know we like right now we're like, you know, why aren't you signing Cody Bellinger? But the moves that were made the last few seasons have seemed to be smart moves, right? Like, and maybe we're jumping the gun on, oh, well, you need to sign him or it's a failure because like you look like I said, Javi Baez, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, all those guys left, right? And Rizzo and Baez and Bryant have basically the non-factors on the teams they went to. Right. Chris Bryant can't stay healthy. Anthony Rizzo's been the most maybe Kyle Schwarber, but Rizzo that's
probably a close toss-up between those two. Right.
Rizzo's contributed quite a bit to the Yankees, you know, and Schwarber, he's Schwarber in the playoffs. That's what you get, you know, and it's an unfortunate situation because I love baseball, you know, going to the Cubs games in the summer. It's one of my favorite things to do. And you know, I'd like to go see a team that's competitive to win, get to the playoffs, maybe make some noise in the playoffs. Obviously the Dodgers have all this firepower.
Yeah.
And they just are buying a championship at this point. And but they're going to do Dodger things. They're going to end up choking like usual.
Yeah. You want to throw that comment up again about the Dodgers? I think it's a really good comment.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, you know, maybe it's just you take a team like the Dodgers, you compare them to the Cubs. The Dodgers aren't afraid to say we're all in. You know, I think Donnie says it best. Like they're all in. They went out, they made every move possible. They said, we don't care how much money it takes. We don't care who we have to go get. We're going to get the pieces we need. And then you see Clayton Kershaw re-signed, and all these guys are re-signing for 1 year just to finish it out with them. Mm-hmm. Like they're not afraid to make those moves. Like I almost feel like sometimes the Cubs are afraid to put that pressure on themselves and say, okay, we made the moves. Now we have to win. Like it almost feels like they're playing with house money every year because they're better than we think they're going to be. And then we're like, hey, well, they were never supposed to be here in the first place.
Right, like last season.
To do it.
Yeah, like last season, they were supposed to be terrible.
Right.
And then all these pieces started working together. They won way more games than they were expected to win. And now there's that pressure for next season.
Right.
You won more games. You got a better manager who's going to put these pieces in position to get the best out of them. And you're hoping that leads you to the playoffs. You had a solid run the end of the season, just missing the playoffs. Like for a team that was expected to lose and be one of the worst teams in baseball, to be in that position towards the end of the season, it gave fans something to hope for, at least. And that's what's frustrating about a lot of the Chicago teams. You know, we were going to talk Bulls, but I forgot to make a graphic. So we're just going to talk Bulls if we decide to. But that team too, and just like the White Sox, I know we're talking a lot about the Cubs, but the White Sox have done nothing.
Cares about the White Sox,
right? Because they're trash, you know. And then you got the Bulls, and the Bulls.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like if we get into it or decide to whatever, the conversation about the Bulls is again another Chicago team that did nothing. Well, look at the owner. Like he owns the Bulls, he owns the White Sox. What's the familiar consistent between the two? They don't make any moves. Like
right. Imagine if the Bulls never got Michael Jordan. Like, because they lucked into Jordan.
Well, right. Like, what if Sam Bowie doesn't get picked before Jordan? Like, what if Jordan never becomes a Bull? Like, what is the franchise known for? Being really good with Derrick Rose until he got hurt?
Right. And you hope that that's still in play.
Yeah.
But at that point, like Michael brought so much revenue to that team.
Yeah.
Built the Bulls back up from absolute trash over the years. You know, the cocaine circus they talk about and the Last Dance documentary.
Yeah.
Like, that team was in a rough spot.
Well, I mean, and you look at the White Sox, who every year for the last 3 years, you hear people who have forgotten more about baseball than either one of us will ever know say that this team has a real good chance to come out of the American League or
right.
At least do a lot of things. And then you see them not make any moves. And then to go a step farther, you take a billionaire owner and he's asked about Shohei Ohtani and he laughs.
Yeah.
Like, why would a Chicago team sign him?
Dude.
Because
he took himself out of the running for that before it was even time to be in the running for that. That's how terrible the White Sox are right now, is that they don't care. At least it seems like they don't care. And you hear on the radio down there all the time, well, no, Reinsdorf cares, blah, blah, blah. Well, he sure as hell doesn't act like it.
Right. Well, then all this about moving the stadium and building a new stadium in the South Loop and all this stuff, like,
yeah, I mean, that's just trying to capitalize on what the Bears are doing.
Right. It's just he's trying to deflect. I feel like, oh, don't look over here that we're doing nothing to make our team better. And you go, like, even with the front office people, like, I like Chris Getz. I think he has a good baseball mind, but he's very unproven.
Right.
To go say, well, this is the guy that's going to lead our franchise. Like, really?
Yep.
Like,
absolutely.
that's the guy?
Turtle, you and I have a question in the comments.
Okay.
This is for us right here. Let's say only one team can do well. Who do you most want to see prosper out of all the Chicago sports teams?
Oh,
I like that question.
Just baseball or
no? Out of all the Chicago sports teams,
I think it's an easy one for me.
Which one?
It's got to be the Bears, man. Like, we got to enjoy the Hawks dynasty, the Kane, Taves, all them guys. We got the Bulls 2 3-peats. Like, we got to be a part of that.
And I was a little young for that, but
it happened. Like, we've gotten to experience it. The Cubs won the World Series, all that stuff. I could care less if the White Sox ever win another game the rest of their existence, so they'll never be my choice. So I think, but like the Bears, man, we've gotten it so wrong for so long that, like, and we'll get into it more later, but it like, I would give anything for the Bears to just be good, get it right, get the right guy, like, even if it's somebody that everybody's like, no, that guy blows, it's not him. Like, if that's the guy, let's do it. Let's get him in here. See, here I go. I'm taking off on a tangent.
That's all right, though. That's Brent's fault. We blame him because he put the question out there. And I would agree with you. I watched, okay, so growing up, my grandfather, huge Cubs fan. My dad, huge Cubs fan. I got to watch misery at its finest being a Cubs fan. And then 16 hit, the Cubs win the World Series. To this point in my life, that is the greatest sports moment of my entire life, obviously. But I've never got to see the Bears win a Super Bowl. I've got to see them in the Super Bowl, but I've never got to see them win a Super Bowl. And the Bears are I love football. So the Bears are my favorite Chicago sports team. I could talk Bears forever. Anybody that watches this network understands that you throw Angelo on a tangent with the Bears and it's another 12 hours before he's done. But yeah, I would definitely want to see the Bears, especially because, like, at this point, they're kind of a laughing stock of the NFL because they're just they're sitting in like Cleveland Browns, Jacksonville Jaguar territory right now.
The only problem is that now the Browns and Jaguars are good.
Right. And the Bears aren't. So, but I liked that question. I thought it'd be cool just to bring it up. Good work, Brent. Appreciate it. I think
that mean you agree it would also be the Bears for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because And Chicago loves the Bears.
Ooh,
There's no division.
Can I ask you a really good question?
Yes, please.
This just popped in my head right now. So maybe it's not as good, but to me it sounds like it is. You can pick one of two things doesn't happen. Either Derrick Rose never gets hurt,
Okay.
or the Bears pick Patrick Mahomes and not Mitchell Trubisky.
Oof. Okay, so if I had to pick one, I love playoff basketball. I'm not like I'll watch basketball and I'll watch the Bulls, but the regular season, especially to the players, means very little. But the United Center playoff basketball, dude, nothing gets going. I wish Derrick Rose never got hurt because I think that team was constructed to beat the Miami Heat for multiple seasons. Derrick Rose is playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
Leading up to that series, and then he gets hurt, and the rest is history. You know, you get all the memes of Simba on Derrick Rose and stuff like Mufasa, and it was
Ooh, my dad just broke my heart. He texted me and said that the Bears are in the Jets territory right now.
yeah, and I got Alex over here saying they're kind of like the dirty dom of the NFL over here. Coming back to the conversation we had yesterday that got me heated, and we're not going to talk about that, Alex. You know, Danny over here says Mahomes and Donnie, sorry. And I get that because the Bears, they made the wrong decision. You know, like Derrick Rose fell into the Bulls' lap. They got him. And then the Bears, they were like, oh, yeah, you know what we're going to do? We're going to trade a bunch of draft capital and pick the worst of the quarterbacks that got picked that year.
I mean, I don't want to get too far into it, and especially because, you know, it almost makes me throw up every time I even remotely defend Trubisky. But if you look back, like there was a lot of experts that were like, oh, he's going to be the best of the quarterbacks coming out. You know, even like to me, I remember that draft unfolding, and when they said they were moving up, I looked at my dad and I said, they just traded up to get Deshaun Watson. There's nobody else you trade up for to that spot unless you're going to take Deshaun Watson.
Were we doing shows back then?
He just hung 500 yards on Alabama for the second year in a row. Like, that was the guy. And then they said Mitchell Trubisky, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you mean you traded back for Mitchell Trubisky? Not ahead. Like
one spot, one pick ahead. You needed Mitch that
wasn't taking a quarterback either.
No.
Like,
and you needed him so badly.
Yeah.
You needed to jump ahead one spot to get him.
Well, that's my thing is, like, I've always asked, so by moving, and I don't want to get too far off the path here, but if you make that move to move in front of San Francisco, give up all that capital to get Trubisky, you're saying if they take Trubisky, we cannot win with Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes. Like, because otherwise you say, well, I really want, like, have you ever heard Sean Payton talk about Patrick Mahomes in that draft?
I did not.
So he was on ESPN 1000 one time because him and Yurko.
Yep.
So he was on and he was saying that during that draft, at their spot at 11, I believe they said, we're either going to take Marshawn Lattimore or we're going to take Patrick Mahomes. We like Lattimore, but if Mahomes is there, we might take him. And he said when he heard Kansas City had moved in front of them and traded up, he said, Andy Reid just got Patrick Mahomes. Before it was even announced, he said as soon as he heard Kansas City had moved up, he knew it was for Patrick Mahomes. Yep. And they wound up getting Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah, it's wild how the draft, and you know, we can get into that once we touch on the Bears, but you just look at how terrible the Bears have done. That's okay. I'm going to save that for the Bears topic because I will jump all through the Bears on their previous drafts.
Yeah.
But we'll jump into the Messiah has returned. Connor Bedard is back in the lineup tonight for the Chicago Blackhawks. Thank God, because I have tickets to the game on the 16th, and March. Oh, yeah. The only reason I have tickets is to see him. And when he broke his jaw, I was like, of course that happens. And right. I'm not going to get to see him. I'm going to have to see a trash ass team.
Yeah.
But Connor Bedard makes his return after a broken jaw, and until he got hurt, he was obviously one of the most exciting things in hockey. He's been touted as one of the top prospects in recent years to come out. I think he's already sitting at like 33 points on the season,
Something like that, 31,
which is nuts.
Something like that.
Right now the Hawks are losing 2-0, but whatever. Bedard's back, so I'm not expecting him to have like the most outrageously good game. But you're looking at a Hawks team that's 14, 36-3. Like that's bad. So when you have a guy like Bedard who comes in and gives your team that little bit of hope, and then he's gone and you have to watch such a terrible team, it really does show you, especially in hockey, how having one of those top guys just turns the look of a franchise around. Because before Bedard got there, we were looking at this Hawks team and thinking, oh my God, they're terrible. They're getting rid of Patrick Mahomes, Jonathan Taves, and it's just a lot of bad hockey. Not going to lie, when they got rid of those two guys, it was a little tough. All the memories, right? The nostalgia of those cups. But now Bedard gives you that hope, right? And the thing about the Hawks right now is they're so bad that like they're in contention for one of the top draft picks next year. Right. So you could keep building this team and get some solid players next year as well. And then you're looking at a team that another year for, Bedard's second year, he could come out here and be a real, sharpshooter with the puck. He's got crazy puck handling. You watch all the highlights of these shots, the Michigan behind the net, and it's crazy. But yeah, I'm really excited to see him back this last stretch of the season, and hopefully, he's able to give a little bit of a spark to a team that's just awful.
Yeah, I mean, and it never fails, right? Like every year you hear, oh, this kid's a generational talent. Caleb Williams, generational talent. Andrew Luck, all these guys, like throughout sports, it seems like every year there's somebody that is the greatest that has ever walked the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So like when a Chicago team gets somebody like that, I feel like the Chicago sports fan in all of us is like waiting for that other shoe to drop. Like, yeah, but how bad are they really going to be? Like how much of a bust are they really going to be? Like, we're going to get the guy that everybody says is can't miss, who is going to miss.
Yep.
And then he gets here and he says all the right things. He does all the right things. Then he gets on the ice and you're like, whoa, this is actually really good.
Yep.
Like he might actually be better than everybody said he was. And when you see guys like Wayne Gretzky and, countless legends come out and say this kid has a chance to be the best ever, like, okay, that's something we don't hear. Like, that's different than saying, oh, this kid is the best prospect I've seen. Mm-hmm. Like when Wayne Gretzky comes out and says he may be the one to challenge me, like that carries a lot of weight.
Right. It's like he's actually, in my opinion, has already surpassed the expectations that he had. I know he was hurt, so you missed a little bit of the season, but this guy has come in. I don't even want to say a guy. This kid has come onto this team knowing the pressure that was going to be on him to be that guy in the NHL, and he's lived up to it. You hear all this good stuff about, especially like you said, from Wayne Gretzky, where the greatest hockey player of all time is how people tout him, and for him to give credit that he's given to Connor Bedard it's kind of nuts. And, like you said, Chicago sports fans, it's always, when's the rug going to get pulled out from underneath of us? But I don't think that's the situation we're in right now, as long as he can stay healthy.
Well, and then, you see like the Hawks, they lead the league in games played by first-year players.
Yep.
So when you see, it's like, oh, okay. But then you look, like some of them are actually really good. Like behind Bedard, they just drafted really, really well.
Yep.
In several spots where they needed it. And, so you see it and you can't help but wonder, like, okay, so they've got these first-year guys. They're really young. They're going to lose a lot of games, especially when Bedard got hurt. Like you said, you have a legit shot now to land the number 1 pick again. And hockey is like one of those things where it's not like, oh, we took this kid first overall. Cool, we'll see him in 5 years. Like, they start to jump in right away and make impact. So now when you've got these young players who are playing really, really well, Connor Bedard, who is a problem for other teams, and then now you can possibly add another top pick. Like, I think my hockey knowledge isn't great, I'll be the first to admit, but I think it was the Islanders a few years back where they were bad every single year and they kept drafting first, second, third overall, drafting these top picks, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my goodness, they're really good. They're good. They're young. They're fast. Like, so why not the Hawks? You see them definitely on the right direction, and I think it all starts with Bedard.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not gonna lie. When I started Sport Court, it was originally supposed to be for more serious sports topics. And back when I started it, I had Sarah Spain on as a guest, and we discussed the allegations that were happening with the Blackhawks, with all the sexual allegations and stuff with the players. And it was a really bad light shown on this team, especially for a team that was really kind of like the Chicago Sweethearts, right? There was really never any bad publicity with this team. You'd have Patrick Kane have some issues here and there, but ultimately they were pretty much, keep your nose clean type of team. And then this comes out and it really tarnished, I think, a lot of the shine that was on those cups that were won. And now you have a situation, and then you were bad after that, so there was nothing to try to pull you out of it. Now you bring in Connor Bedard, and he's that hope. He's that light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, to get this team back on the good graces with, the city. And I cannot wait to see this kid develop and to see how much better he gets in the coming years. And then to see what they put around him, I think is going to be really interesting also.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we should bash the Bulls for a little bit.
Bash the Bulls. I mean, I'm all for it. I don't have a thing, but we'll go to this, and this will just be us. And let's see if my camera works yet. Nope, I'm still frozen looking at my phone. But hey, here I am. So, bash the Bulls. What do you want to bash them about? I mean, there's a lot you can. And you guys know me. You watched my take on them last week.
I've got so much built up about the Bulls. I think it's just I need that release.
Let it flow.
When they went out and they got AK, maybe it was my fault. Maybe it was all Bulls fans' fault for believing so much in this guy. Like, he was going to be the savior. He was going to build what couldn't be built. He was going to be the next great piece to build the Bulls organization. And I think it was really easy because you look at the Nuggets. You look at the Nuggets and you see all the things they do, the foreign players, the getting guys in the second round, finding Jokic, finding all these guys. And you're like, well, it was AK. AK helped build the Nuggets.
Right.
Like, that's why they're so good. That's who we're getting. We're going to be the Nuggets. They are not the Nuggets. They suck. Like, I don't know how else to put it. They just suck so bad. I don't say this about a lot of players. I try, you know me very well. I try to stay very level-headed, professional about players.
Yep.
If I never see Zach LaVine with a basketball in his hand again, it'll be too soon. This guy is so bad. Like, yes, he can go score you 30 points a game. He's going to also have about 7 turnovers. If you're ever in a close game, you might as well put his ass on the bench because he doesn't know what to do with the basketball. Like, to see what they do with Kobe White, Ayo, Caruso, all these guys that were quote unquote not primetime players like LaVine is. Screw that. Like, LaVine is horrible. He doesn't play defense. I'm tired of hearing people come on shows and say, oh, well, his defense has gotten better. Yeah, because it couldn't get any worse. Like, Alex Caruso is what, 6'5" at the most 6'5"? Like, probably not even that. I've seen this dude line up at point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward this year. DeMar DeRozan, 6'7". I love DeMar DeRozan. Nobody will ever be caught saying that DeMar DeRozan is a great player or a physical player or anything like that. DeMar DeRozan will go play power forward for you at 6'7" and just go do whatever he has to do. He's not a three-point shooter. But he nails the mid-range better than Zach LaVine hits anything else. I'm just so over Chicago teams not living up to their potential. And, like, that's exactly the epitome of who Zach LaVine is. Why do you think Minnesota wanted to get rid of this guy when he was a kid? Because they saw that the dude is a bum. Yep. Like, he's not an A player. You're paying him to be the best player on your team, and your team is better when he's not on the court.
And that is a statistical fact. The record the Bulls have without Zach LaVine is better than what they have with him. The ball moves so much better with him on the bench. Kobe White has had a complete turnaround in his career with the offense going through him. Ayo has stepped up. I mean, Vooch is still Vooch, but Zach LaVine, and I said this, what was it, 2 years ago?
Probably.
I have a little clip that I played a few weeks ago. I was hoping you were on with me. Actually, I think it was last week, maybe. No, I think it was a couple weeks ago that I played. And I'm willing to play it again for you, Turtle, if you want to see it, and then we could go from there. If this is a Bulls bashing session, I think we should. So I'm going to play this. It's going to be a repeat for some of you that watched last week.
I didn't see it.
All right, here we go. I know you kind of wanted to give the Bulls some credit. Let me just...
It's tough, man.
I'm going to say I hate this Chicago Bulls team as currently constructed. And I know, I'm on Twitter a bunch during Bulls games and all kinds of stuff.
You said you hate how the Bulls team is constructed?
Yes. I think, obviously, you gave Zach a max contract, right?
And he deserved it.
Why not? I guess he deserved it. I don't think he's a max player. I think he's a good player, but he's shown in crunch time to not have the best ball handling decisions, and he can't hit the three. If you're going to pay a guy max money, he's got to be a consistent three-point shooter. The NBA is all about shooting the three, moving the ball around, getting a three-point guy open. Who on this Bulls team is a consistent knockdown three-point shooter? Exactly.
Nikola Vucevic.
Vucevic? No thanks.
Vuce is not.
And people are like, oh, well, once Lonzo Ball comes back, they're going to... Dude, I loved the way that they played in the beginning of last season, right? DeMar... So pretty much that's just how it goes. I talk about the rest of it is basically what the Bulls... They find themselves in, in contract hell. They have a busted Lonzo Ball. And I hate saying that because Lonzo has worked really hard in his career to turn his shot around, and he's done a good job. But like I said, the only reason they signed Zach LaVine is because there was nobody else to sign.
Absolutely. And then it goes farther, right? Let's not get it twisted. This is not a Zach LaVine bash session. This is a Bulls problem. Yep. The first pick of this new regime was Patrick Williams.
Yep.
Didn't even start in college.
That's true. He did not.
Didn't start in college. Okay.
Now, in fairness to that,
because...
But fairness to that, the coach that he had liked to play older players to start and then bring younger guys off the bench.
So we looked past it.
Right.
But then they built him up to be, or presented him to be, a souped up, better version of Kawhi Leonard. A guy that was going to guard 1 through 5 every night, was going to go guard the best scorer on every team the Bulls played, was going to deal with Patrick Williams.
Yep.
So he gets here. They play a couple games. LeBron James says, yo, this dude's defense is legit. And then it was like he started to buy into his own hype.
Yep.
And was like, yo, I'm him. I'm him. And then just disappeared.
Yep.
He doesn't score, which is
that's an understatement.
Really weird part, because you see the games where he's aggressive, he has zero problem scoring.
Yeah.
So it's not like a skill. Like when Jimmy Butler was drafted, everybody said the dude is a lockdown bulldog defender.
Yep.
Has to develop the offensive side of his game in a jump shot. To Jimmy's credit, and you've heard all the stories, he stayed and shot 200 shots a night, all this and that. He is the player he is now, who is a legitimate two-way superstar.
Yep.
Patrick Williams is not a superstar on either side of the ball.
Bro, he wouldn't even be a superstar on the Windy City Bulls.
Like, he struggles to defend. He doesn't play passing lanes well. He's not the rebounder that we were told he is.
Nope.
And he refuses to get aggressive on the offensive side of the ball.
So for reference, the rebounder that he was touted as, he averages career 4.2 rebounds a game.
What about his steals? How many steals is he averaging?
Steals, career 0.9.
So you're getting less than 5 rebounds, less than 1 steal.
Yep. You're getting 1.3.
What are you doing on defense that you're making a difference? Oh, nothing.
And his scoring is
you're not contributing on offense either.
And his scoring is pedestrian. Actually, it's worse than pedestrian. I could accidentally fall into 10 points in the NBA. Like, he's averaging 9.7 points a game in his career. Like, I'm not saying throw me the ball at the 3-point line. I'll chuck it up and I'll probably hit 9 points by the end of that.
I mean, and you heard, so he worked out with DeMar DeRozan and them guys in California.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard, well, we're working on him being more aggressive. He said, my focal point this year is to be more aggressive on the offensive side of the ball. When is that going to start? Because I haven't seen it yet.
And, don't get me wrong, he's young. He is still young, but Lowry was young too, and they got rid of him. Patrick Williams is only 22.
Right.
So, he's a young player in the NBA, but for a team with this, as this Bulls team is currently constructed, you need to see these young guys show you something. Right. And he hasn't shown you anything.
So then fast forward to this year and we say, okay, they're going to move Zach LaVine. He mysteriously, coincidentally, winds up having season-ending surgery to not get traded to the Pistons.
What a move.
Yeah. But then on top of it, you have to sit there and listen to AK say, well, we just didn't see any moves that we thought were right for this team. But we did get a move. We did acquire somebody, and that's Lonzo Ball, his return to practice. Bro, what? Not to be funny, but you're talking about practice?
Yeah, practice.
Your big thing coming out of the deadline is Lonzo Ball is returned to practice when he's already been ruled out for the rest of the year?
Yeah, he was already ruled out. They got the insurance claim for him.
Right.
He can't play this season.
Right. Come on, AK. I need you to be better. I need more out of the guy that's running this organization. I need a guy that has a plan and says, this didn't work, bet. Now I'm on this move. Oh, that move didn't work, bet. Now I'm on this move. What are your moves? We used to laugh and joke and make fun of Pax and Gar Forman.
Mm-hmm.
They used to sit on their assets. They used to say, it's the same thing. How do you look at this team? And I like Vooch. I think he's a cool dude. I really do. He goes to one of the crumbles down by the Bulls all the time. Always signs autographs. I feel the dude just seems like a really cool dude. I need him to stop saying, well, this team has everything to run it back.
Yeah.
You don't.
No.
Like, you don't have it. Even when DeMar and LaVine were playing at their best together, the team still wasn't good enough to win. So then if you're telling me that the missing piece, because this is what they keep clinging to, is that the missing piece is Lonzo Ball.
Right. Because of how that season when he was healthy started.
Correct.
That's it.
You don't know. Let's just say Lonzo Ball is 100% cleared going into next season. You don't know that you're going to get that version of Lonzo Ball.
Dude hasn't played basketball in 3 seasons.
And it wasn't like he was playing that every year that way.
Right.
Like it was, oh my God, look at Lonzo Ball. He's never played this good before. Who says he's ever going to play that good again?
Exactly.
Like it can't just be like, we're just going to go, oh, Lonzo got hurt. Shit. It's cool. As soon as he comes back, we got it. We're gonna be the best team in the league.
Right. And now, Turtle, I know we bash on the players a little bit. And for the most part, we're pretty good on this network, not just trashing players.
Correct.
And I'm very pleased that that's how we operate business over here. I've been places where it's not that way. And we even gave AK and Mark Eversley, if he's even a human, I don't know. You never see dude around. He was supposed to be this guy that was connected through shoe deals and all these players and all this stuff. And that's never really given you anything. But maybe, just maybe, we look at the Sox. We talked about them earlier. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is ownership. So Brent, I know you talked about receipts that I had. I don't necessarily have receipts on this, but I do have an interesting quote from last year that Jerry Reinsdorf gave a few years before last year, but it came out last year. Somebody had said that Reinsdorf was quoted, "You know what? Here's my best advice to you. Finish in second place every single year because your fans will say, wow, we've got a shot. We're in it. But there's always that carrot left. There's always one step to take." That's the owner of 2 sports teams in Chicago saying that. Not even like.
But then look at those franchises and the moves they've made. Like, they kind of sound like those type of moves.
Yes. The moves that don't put you in contention to be champion, they just put you in contention to be good enough to get beat in the playoffs.
Like, I want to get to the Bears, so I don't want to shortchange the Bears, so I don't want to stay too long on the Bulls. But like, for me, the worst part is looking forward. Like, DeMar DeRozan is a free agent. He's going to leave. He's not going to re-sign here. Mm-hmm. So you're going to lose DeMar DeRozan for nothing. Zach LaVine is so fractured with the Bulls, it's never going to work with him.
Nope, he will never play for the Bulls again.
So he's gone.
Yep.
Alex Caruso is a great glue piece, not a because of piece.
Right.
Kobe White, for as great as he's playing this year, he's going to have to do it another year before I'm like, oh, okay, this kid's good. Like, he's legit. Like, I need to see it again. Like, you can't just do it one year. So, like, you take LaVine off this team. You take DeRozan off this team. Vooch is old. Mm-hmm. He's not your future. What happens to this organization? What leads you to have any sort of confidence that this team doesn't become what it was after Jordan and before Rose, that bottom of the barrel,
right?
Starting 5 that you go, we're starting who?
Exactly. And the thing is like, that's already on the horizon. So why didn't they just accept that fate, get rid of some of these players just to get something? Yes, something, anything. I hate
accelerate the rebuild because you're going to have to rebuild.
Yes, 100%.
From what I read, everything I read and people I talked to, everything I was told was that the Bulls were only willing to trade players and get competitive players back.
Right, but your team isn't full of competitive players.
They wanted to stay competitive. They didn't want to rebuild. You're not competitive now.
Nope.
So you are looking to stay competitive when you're already not competitive.
Yep.
And I really think the outcome for this team is going back to being that bottom of the league team.
Yep. And it sucks because Chicago, the city, loves when the Bulls are good.
Absolutely.
I told you.
And they come out for it. Like they support the hell out of the Bulls.
Yep. Yeah, man. Like I want to go to a Bulls game.
Support the fans.
I've never been to a Bulls game.
Oh my God!
I've been to Bucks games. I've got to watch Shaq play. I got to see KD, but I've never gone to a Bulls game, and I can't justify spending money on tickets for a team that really doesn't care to win.
Right. Well, and just wait, because in a couple of years, their tickets are gonna be, you're gonna be able to get $15 tickets again, like you used to.
Hey, maybe that's the time to hop on the season ticket bandwagon.
There's gonna be nobody that plays for this team that means anything.
Right.
And they'll go right back to not spending any money, not competing, and they'll be just like the White Sox.
Yep. All right. Now that we just roasted the entire Chicago Bulls organization, there was some moves the Bears made today, cutting 2 veterans of the team. Eddie Jackson, Cody Whitehair. Jackson, was drafted out of Alabama. I know Tarbill was real high on him when he was drafted.
In honor of Tarbill, I'll say it one time only. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. That move clears up about $22 million in 32. Cap space. 32?
32 million.
32 million. And it gives the Bears, I believe, around $67 million in cap space for this season. That brings us to.
I think it gives them more than that. I want to say they were in the weren't they in the 60s before that move?
I'm reading right now, and it says the Bears cleared up. The Chicago now has $67 million in available cap space for the 2024 season, 3rd most in the league, with free agency just around the corner. Jackson was good, 4th round pick in 2017, 459 tackles, 15 interceptions. 10 forced fumbles. He was solid. Cody Whitehair, he was okay. Played 124 games, 118 starts for 8 seasons. He was a Pro Bowler in 18. He was an okay player, but these guys were getting to the point. Jackson was getting old.
Well, and he's what? I think he's going to be 30 this year.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so anybody who watched this show know I'm a big Eddie Jackson fan. I was the lone Eddie Jackson fan 2 years ago when everybody was trying to get him out of town. I said, just get a little bit of a pass rush, watch what he can do. And he had a great year. Did everything that you would want him to do. He's going to be 30 this year. They saved I think it was 12 to 14 million they saved off him this year. It just got into a situation that he's good, but there's guys out there that are younger than him that are just as good as him already that you don't have to pay as much.
Right, exactly.
Eddie Jackson had a great year, and it might have been the same year, but I always compare it to Derwin James from the Chargers. They had really good years when it was time to get paid. You had to pay Eddie Jackson like he was a top safety in football because at that time he was. Derwin James got paid that way. He has stayed a top safety in football while Eddie Jackson has not.
Right.
Eddie never has been a tackler. He wasn't at Alabama. There was no thought that he was going to be in the NFL. He's that center field, take the ball away type guy, but he doesn't do it enough without the pass rush. If I have to make everybody else really, really good on the field for you to excel, then I'm sorry, but I can't pay you like you're the top player in football. Especially when you're going to be 30.
Right.
There's a few guys that are available in free agency that I really like. Geno Stone is one of them. Probably get him for about half of what Eddie Jackson would have cost.
Mm-hmm.
There's guys in the draft you can get. It just became a cap thing. You couldn't wholeheartedly go into the season saying, well, we're not going to create this cap space and keep trotting Eddie Jackson out there.
Right. It would have been different if he was willing to restructure, but at this point too, like you said, he's 30. Right. This team is a team that's
they were one piece away. If he was going to be the deciding factor, if they're ready for a Super Bowl, then you go, okay, maybe we ride it out one more year, but you're not. There's other holes on this team. it's not. You're not Eddie Jackson away from being a Super Bowl team.
No, not even. No. That's the thing is, they got rid of 2 guys. Cody Whitehair has struggled the last season and a half, 2 seasons. Maybe that's a lot to do with the fact that he never just had a set position with this team. He played kind of all over that line. But last season at center, it was a hard watch. This guy had passes that were over Justin's head, passes that were hitting his feet. It was hard to watch. And everybody knew that was coming at the end of the year.
Right.
He wasn't even he was barely playing towards the end of the season.
Right. You weren't going to hold a guy that had a $15 million cap hit on your offensive line to not play.
Right. And not to just be a piece. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just going to be a guy off the bench kind of piece.
Right. You're not going to be a rotation piece.
Right.
Or a swing guy at that rate.
And now, we talked about them, and it kind of walks us into our next point. The transition is nice with a balancing act, the best way for the Bears to address these needs that they have this season, free agency versus the draft. We just discussed that they had $64 million in cap space. I read an article on The Athletic about the Bears. It was actually all 32 teams and the biggest need that they had going into the offseason. And the Bears' biggest offseason need was edge rusher. And it says, focus is obviously on the quarterback position. The other thing that could help them is an opposite pass rusher of Montez Sweat. And I agree fully. You have a defense that's stepped up, played better, and that's you got to believe that's the reason they kept Flus around, because the defense has played so well. And a lot of people were scratching their heads when the Bears gave away that draft pick for Montez Sweat. I think that's going to be a steal of a pick.
Absolutely.
You're not going to get a guy in the second round.
He wasn't going to make it to free agency. Like, wherever
Exactly.
he went, he was going to sign long term.
Exactly. And you're not going to get a guy in the second round that's going to give you the productivity that Sweat has given you already.
Well, and, then it came out after the fact that Atlanta had offered a second round pick for him. And that deal was pretty much done until the Bears called and said, we'll give you a better second round pick.
Right. Yep. So,
it turned out it was only just one pick apart.
Yeah. Hey, one pick is.
But we'll take it. At the time it looked like the Bears were going to have a top, might have picks 1 and 2. And everyone was like, oh, we can get a top, like Pittsburgh did last year with that stupid Chase Claypool trade where they got the first pick of the second round.
Yep.
I think that's what kind of Washington saw, and it turned out to be 9th, not 2nd. But, for me, as big and important as this draft is, and I get it, why everybody keeps saying that this draft is what's going to define the Ryan Poles era and where this organization goes. I think it starts in free agency. You have a lot of money. Would you say third highest in the NFL right now?
Yep.
And there are other moves they can make to create some more cap space. But sorry, go ahead.
I got some notable free agent targets, that I personally think the Bears should look at. I
got a few as well.
What's their major needs right now? Okay, edge rusher, yes. Other than that, obviously we think
edge rusher, interior defensive lineman, wide receiver number 2.
Yep.
A center.
They have to get Jalen Johnson
re-upped. I'd like to see an upgrade at left tackle. If you don't re-sign Jalen Johnson, then you have a huge hole at corner 1.
Right. I mean, there's guys like Brian Burns as a free agent this year.
I don't see any way Brian Burns hits free agency.
You don't think so?
So Carolina would not give up Brian Burns in any trade. Last year in the number 1 trade with the Bears, they were willing to give up DJ Moore, but not Brian Burns has been untouchable. Right. This year at the deadline, teams offered multiple first-round picks for Brian Burns, and they said no. At that point, I just don't see how you don't at least franchise him if you can't work out a deal. Like, I just don't see how you could turn down multiple first-round picks at the deadline and then a couple months later be like, all right, well, it didn't work out.
Right. Danielle Hunter from the Vikings, he's a free agent. There's a lot of smoke around potentially the Bears looking at him. I know a couple articles came out that said the Bears were major players in him. I think that would be a huge upgrade for that defensive line.
There's 2 guys that I would want to see the Bears get. And one is either Chase Young I don't buy into the lazy talk and that he takes plays off and all that. I'm sure he does. A lot of players, the NFL does.
Yep.
You saw him come out and play his ass off in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
And then the other guy is, and again, I don't know what the situation is in Jacksonville. It sounds like they're not going to franchise him, so maybe they don't work out a deal with him. If Josh Allen hits the free agent market, that there's not enough money that would be too much for me to pay him. For those who aren't very familiar with him, he was a defensive end in 4-3. Jacksonville switched to 3-4. He's now an outside linebacker. The dude is he lives in the backfield. Like, he blowing up run plays, pressuring the quarterback, sacking the quarterback. Like, the kid is a stud. Like, if he somehow makes it to free agency, that has to be the number one priority for this team, is adding that dude in free agency.
So he was second, I believe, in sacks this year in the NFL with 17.5, and second in quarterback pressures with 96.
With nobody on the other side.
Yeah. So you give that to this defensive line. You got Sweat coming off one edge. You got him on the other. That is a nasty sounding pass rush. And I love a good pass rush.
Yeah. I mean, there's just
the quarterback position is the most important position, right?
Yeah.
So
we're going to address that at first overall.
Right. So the thing you need to do, obviously, is stop the quarterback. And how do you do that? By getting that pass rush to the quarterback. And automatically you add that pass rush. Everybody else in the defense does better. We've talked about this on multiple shows in the past, because quarterbacks get rushed. They have to get rid of the ball faster than they want to. Yeah. They get off target. That gives the guys in the secondary plenty of opportunity to make plays.
Yeah.
I've been a firm believer that the Bears needed to add a pass rusher this offseason no matter what.
Well, especially because there's just you don't have enough draft picks to fill all the holes.
Right.
So it has to start in free agency. And so as you know, we have our own chat on the USN chat, and a lot of meathead stuff takes over, and we're like, oh, this is what they should do. I have switched from a lot of the views to maybe this is fast forwarding too much. I don't know. Don't mean to get us out of lane, but I now firmly believe that the Bears should take Caleb Williams number 1. The only way I would trade that pick is if somebody offers a 100% guaranteed franchise-altering offer.
Yeah.
Not just a really, really good offer. Not just, hey, oh my God, we got DJ Moore with these picks. I'm talking a absolute 100% guaranteed franchise-altering offer. You saw in the Super Bowl, I don't care what anybody else says. You know me. I'm not shy.
Right.
San Francisco played a hell of a game.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes was better.
Yep.
Not Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes was better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and nobody does, that Caleb Williams is Patrick Mahomes. What I do know is Justin Fields is never going to be.
That's true. I agree with that.
So if you can tell yourself 100% guaranteed Justin Fields is never going to be Patrick Mahomes, then why would you settle for that? Why would you settle for mediocrity and hope that he turns out to be more when you know that no matter what he turns out to be, will never be Patrick Mahomes?
Right. I mean, he's not even Lamar Jackson.
Right. Right. Correct. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that he's just below Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
I'm saying that Patrick Mahomes is now the measuring stick in football for quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
If you know wholeheartedly that the guy you have right now will never be him, then he's not your guy.
Yep.
I also am going to double down and say, I hope they don't trade up to number 3 or number 2, whatever, for Marvin Harrison Jr. There's other holes that they need to fill. We just talked about we're not going to fill them all. If you can get an edge rusher in free agency, it goes a long way to help.
Yep.
You still need an interior defensive lineman. There's not a whole lot of guys that are going to be free agents that are going to be difference makers. Maybe that's where you go get one of them. Or if you add a second-round pick for Justin Fields, like for me, and this is, sorry, I know it's long-winded, but this is going to tie it all in. for me, I go get the edge rusher, especially, like I said, I cannot stress enough if Josh Allen becomes a free agent, that's the guy. But you address the edge rusher in free agency. The very next move for me has to be Connor Williams from Miami. You go sign him to center. You sign him. I love the kid from Oregon. I love, who is it, Jackson Powers. I love Van Pran from Georgia. But if you can address it in free agency, it takes another need off of your list.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, you just have to do that because you don't have enough picks. Let's just assume they trade Justin Fields for a second-round pick. So now we have a second-round pick. I'd like to see them get either Joe Alt or Fashanu, the tackle for Penn State, at number 9. If neither one of them is there and Newton, the interior defensive lineman from Illinois, is still there, that's the guy. If one of the tackles is there, you take him at 9, and then in the second round with that pick, you get, I don't know, somebody like Michael Hall from Ohio State, or there's probably 3 or 4 guys that really are probably ready to step in and contribute right away at that 3 technique spot in the draft. I just think those have to be 1, 9, and second round have to be Caleb Williams, and then a left tackle and an interior defensive lineman. So if you address edge and you address center and in free agency and maybe some other role players, you know, whether it's another linebacker to throw in the rotation when Jack Sanborn's not on the field, because as great as he is, he's average at best.
Right.
You know, so some of those pieces, maybe you go get a Geno Stone to take over for Eddie Jackson so you don't have to use a draft pick on a starter. Like, that's the key, right? Like, limiting how many draft picks you have to use on starters. Everyone always said with the Rams, they traded all their first-round picks. They don't have any first-round picks. They don't have any second-round picks. What are you going to do? Well, they have their starters already. Like, if you're not drafting starters, then it doesn't matter where you pick in the draft. The Bears are not there. The Bears need starters. So
Right.
you need the high-end draft picks. So you have to address it in free agency. You have to get those guys that then will allow you to make other moves in the draft that fill all the holes.
Yeah, I mean, and this is obviously a hot debate right now with the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. So I'm not like, and hey, we know me in that group chat. I could be meatheadish more than anybody if I have to be. But like, I like Justin Fields. I do. I think he's a good leader for this team. I think he's a good kid. I like what he brings in terms of how he controls the locker room. People want to play for him. And that first overall pick, we just talked about how important draft capital is, right? I agree with you 100%. If you're going to trade that pick, it needs to be traded for, well, I mean, it came out. Ryan Poles wants a historic haul back for this pick. I'm talking 3 first-round draft picks, a second-round pick, a player, some third-round pick. Like, it's going to have to be insane what you're going to get for that pick, because like you said, watching Patrick Mahomes do what he did in that Super Bowl, he was not great to start that Super Bowl. You and I had a discussion about it during the Super Bowl.
Right.
I said, this Chiefs offense looks awful.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, well, he doesn't have a lot of time. And then the second half hit and he still didn't have time, but he decided, hey, I'm going to make time. Lose. Right. I'm going to win this Super Bowl. And that's what he did. He took that game over, and it was just impressive to watch. And I know people are going to bitch and moan about, oh, he's so good, because people hate greatness. And I'll be the first
Absolutely.
to say I'm a hater at times too, especially when it came to like LeBron James. I never really liked LeBron. I never wanted to like LeBron. But now that I'm older and he's older, I appreciate the game of basketball that he played, not just on the court, but also off.
Yeah.
Same thing with Patrick Mahomes and with Tom Brady. And I know people are going to run him through the mud because of the cheating and whatever. But Patrick Mahomes is greatness personified. That dude will, I fully believe, if they keep putting, I mean, this is the worst team he's had in a Super Bowl, and they won. So you just add average pieces at best at some of these spots that they're weak, and you got to think he's going to be – the Chiefs should be contenders for the Super Bowl every single year.
And they will be. As long as they have him, they will be.
Right, exactly. And if you have that opportunity to go out and get something like that, like a Patrick Mahomes, I'm not saying he's got to be the same thing, but you have a guy that when he's at quarterback, you don't care who you're going up against because he will do whatever it takes to put the team on his back, make the plays that need to be made, and win games. Now, Patrick Mahomes doesn't win every game. Patrick Mahomes makes dumbass decisions from time to time. I've watched some pretty terrible interceptions that this dude has thrown throughout seasons. No quarterback is perfect. So to think that Caleb Williams gets picked and he's going to come in automatically and be perfect and save this franchise is silly. My only concern about Caleb Williams coming to this team is if they struggle. I don't know if Bears fans will have enough patience to want Flus to stay. And I do not want to see a situation that we've watched the last two quarterbacks that have been here, where you bring him in, you fire his coach the next year, he's got to learn a completely new system. If you're going to do this, and that's why I thought that they were going to stay with Justin, because you brought Flus back. But if you're going to go with Caleb Williams, Jesus. If you're going to go with Caleb Williams, you need to tie all of them together. I don't care if it's 3 more seasons. I don't care if it's 4 more seasons. You tie it all together. If it's not working at the end of 4 seasons, you get rid of everybody and start fresh.
And I think to your point, like if you're Ryan Poles, you have to kind of have in the back of your mind, like if I go get Caleb Williams, we need to have stability. Like I'm going to give this more than this year to figure it out. I just, like you said, I think, he makes, Mahomes makes stupid throws. He doesn't win every game, but he wins the ones that matter. Like, because you have Mahomes, they weren't afraid to be on the road for the playoffs. Like, we have to go into Baltimore? No big deal. We have to go into Buffalo? Cool, we got it.
Yep.
We're down 10 in the Super Bowl? No big deal. Like, every time you have Patrick Mahomes, like, it's the ultimate trump card. Like, no matter what, if you think of a game of spades, it's like having the ace of spades. Like, it just doesn't matter. Whatever the other team has, you have Patrick Mahomes. We saw it against Josh Allen when they scored, 28 seconds or whatever it was. And the whole meme came from it. Oh, don't ever let your girl tell you 21 seconds is enough or whatever the meme was. Like, because the game was over. Like, everybody thought the game was over except for Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And he went out there, was like, bet, I got a field goal. It's all we need to – all I need is another shot. Just give me the ball one more time.
Yep.
And, like, we'll never know, right? Like, we'll never know if Kyle Shanahan really did not understand the rules to overtime.
I mean, it sounds more and more like he didn't.
Well, so the last interview I saw, he said – we took the ball first because if we scored a touchdown, they scored a touchdown. We wanted the first opportunity to end the game.
Right.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does, but why would you look 3 possessions ahead?
After the fact, it makes a lot more sense than it did when you were like, when players were coming out like, oh, we never talked about it. Like, so we'll never know. But like, those are the things that Patrick Mahomes does to you. He makes you think like, I have to not even allow this dude on the field because he will beat us. The only person I've ever seen that before, and again, I haven't been around for all of football, but I like to consider myself a really good student of the game, is Tom Brady. He's the only other one that I feel like every single time, like dudes were like, I can't even let this guy on the field because there's not a chance that he's going to beat us. He is going to beat us.
Yep. And like it does make sense, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people bashed him. You're looking 3 possessions ahead of time, but think about that. Like it wasn't even a question like, oh, maybe my defense can stop him.
Right.
It was, he's going to score when he gets the ball. We want to have a shot to just end the game after that. And like, I understand that, but also the overtime rules are a lot different now. And you give Patrick Mahomes 4 downs, he's going to pick up a first down.
Right.
And that's the benefit of going second is hey, we have to get first down.
It doesn't matter.
Yes. So you're automatically in that mindset. You're drawing plays up that aren't necessarily going to be, first down, 15-yard plays.
Right.
And you sit and you look at that game. You just watch how there was just a moment in that game in the fourth quarter when I was like, okay, Kansas City knows what they're doing. They know what needs to be done to get the ball down there. They're going to do it. The defense for Kansas City was insane that game.
You look
Spagnuolo,
at
right? That's their defensive coordinator.
And you look at Chris Jones, like if he doesn't make that play on third down, it's a touchdown. They don't kick a field goal.
Right.
Like Ayuk was wide open in the middle of the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris Jones came right through the line so much that Brock Purdy had to roll out. He couldn't even see him. And then he had another dude wide open, Jennings, and he overthrew him because he was getting smacked in the mouth by Chris Jones.
Right.
And
it brings it back to that pass rusher that we talked about.
Absolutely. All ties to, like, for me, watching the Super Bowl, there was a point that I was like, they can't continue with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
It's funny to think like that's what it took because you would never put Justin Fields and Patrick Mahomes in the same sentence. But, like, that's what it was. Watching Patrick Mahomes, I was like, I don't want Brock Purdy.
Nope.
I want Patrick Mahomes.
Yep. And, like, why is it so bad that we want to chase greatness? Especially for a franchise that's never had greatness at the quarterback position.
When you look at the stats of Bears quarterbacks, like, it's
comical.
I don't even know. Like, I don't even have a word for what it is. Like, you look at it and you're like, no, that's not right. Like, that can't be right. The Bears have never had this. They've never had that from the quarterback position. But then, like, you look at receivers too, like DJ Moore, one of the best receivers the Bears ever had statistically, because they've never had that quarterback. Like, so then you look at Patrick Mahomes, and since they traded Tyreek Hill, everybody was like, well, they can't win. They don't have Tyreek Hill. He's throwing to Valdez-Scantling, Rashee Rice, Noah Gray, all these guys that nobody's ever heard of, and that nobody would ever even play on another team. But because you have Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't matter who else is out there.
Right. So, I don't know. It's a hell of a topic, and I know we've already discussed. I think.
Say hi, Ace.
Hi, Ace.
Hey, Bella. Sorry, my picture's frozen. Otherwise, you guys would see me. See, it's still frozen there, and he's just looking at his phone.
There's his face.
But yeah, we talked about we're gonna do something we haven't done yet. We're gonna do a mock draft, and I think it'll be cool because I'd like for everybody who's gonna join us to get a couple teams to go in depth on looking at what those teams need to do, and then we just do the draft and see how it goes and how it unfolds, and I think that'll be a fun little exercise. But I do think that we should probably cut it here, Turtle. We've gone over a little bit more than we usually do, but we had some killer conversation. Thank you guys for tuning in. The chat was just going wild tonight.
It really was. It was nice having everybody on there.
It really was, and I love when everybody's engaged and talks. And Chicago sports, man, it's always going to be polarizing, right? And that's where we're at. So next week, be on the lookout we have a few shows next week. We have the Winner's Circle on Tuesday. Then we have Turtles Take again next week. And then my show, Aces Wild Chicago Sports Take, starts on March 6th. So we got a lot of stuff coming. We might even do a Elimination Chamber recap show. Wrestling seems to be a pretty hot topic with a lot of people around our little network. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. We will see you next week.